Welcome back to another reading and correcting of Bottom Rung. With me, Kidar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. Today we are doing chapter 64. Barking wasn't a sound Tibs heard often. Few dogs in town didn't so much bark as whine. It had been much more common on his street, where dogs from the wealthier areas came and played with the urchins until they didn't come anymore. When younger, Tibbs thought the people they lived with had found out where they went and forbidden them to return. Not even dogs belonged on his street. Older, he'd noticed on the day after they vanished, one tavern always had fresher meats for sale. Whoever the dogs lived with would never know what happened to them. Tibbs followed the sound, walking between people, expecting a crowd to be paying attention to it, and surprised to find the dog sitting by the side of an armorer, barking at people. Someone looked at it, but its size kept them from approaching. Sitting, it was only slightly shorter than Tibbs was standing. It had bright blue eyes, almost the blue of runners, with water as their essence, and gray fur on its face, with a patch of charcoal over one eye moving along its muzzle, as if it had leaked down. The right ear had a rip in it, but Tibbs saw no other sign the dog had been in fights. The dogs in towns were always fighting over scrap. Its body was covered in fur that was a mix of gray, white, and charcoal. It barked at him once as he approached, then canted its head. Tibbs crouched and offered it his hand, sensing for the essence coursing through it. Like anyone without an element, it was faint, but it flowed well, indicating it was in good health. It sniffed along his hand, then licked it and panted. Tibbs rubbed the side of its head and looked around. A dog this healthy had to be with someone. How did you get here? It licked his face and he pushed it away, chuckling. They're probably inside, aren't they? The shop owner probably didn't want you in. They can be difficult. A lot of them didn't want me to get close to their stuff just because I'm a rogue. He stood and rubbed the top of the dog's head. If I see you again, I'll make sure to have some jerky for you. He headed to the inn, where his team waited. They were going to discuss how they deal with the bunnylings on their next run while they ate lunch. He waved at Khrushchev, who was arguing with a noble at a table. The noble looked exasperated, while Khrushchev was amused. After a few months of being here, the nobles still weren't used to not getting their every command obeyed. Guys, Tibbs called. Sorry, Jago was on his feet. Where did you get that thing? Pointed in Tibbs' direction. Tibbs turned, and the dog came next to him before sitting. He looked at the entrance. The person that came with it came looking. Would he get in trouble? It was outside. I didn't know it followed me. I just petted it. Take it back, the Jekyll ordered, and the dog barked. The fighter took a step back. Tibbs looked from the dog, tongue lolling at the side of its muzzle, to Jackal, who looked pale and ready to bolt. It's just a dog, Kierna said. A big one, but it looks safe enough. Hasn't eaten Tibbs. You'd probably scare it if you got too close. I'm not getting close to that thing. Tibbs, it can't be in here. It's probably full of disease. Looks healthy enough, Mez said. Commodore was studying the dog with an interest that had Tibbs place a hand on its head. Mez, no dog's healthy. They're nothing more than moving disease. There's no way Crow's dad is going to want that thing in here. The dog's fine, Rusev said, walking by. That draws the line at horses. Crow, Joe called out after the man hurt. Tibbs, you don't want anything to do with those beasts. Trust me, they're going to turn on you and rip you apart. Okay, I'll. A whistle sounded over the inn's patron, and the dog stood, ears straight, tail wagging quickly. It turned and barked once. The inn fell into silence. No, Jekyll whispered. A woman walked through the inn. She was tall, with short black hair, normal gray eyes, and dressed in the green and black of the city guard. Of the town's guard. Of the town's guards. She stopped half a dozen feet from Tibbs, and two dogs sat, one on each side of her. She fixed her gaze on Tibbs. Who are you? She demanded, and what have you done to my dog? Tibbs swallowed. Had it meant for the dog to follow him? Jackie? She asked, now looking over him. It's Jackal, Jackal replied. Don't tell me you're still doing that. You're still doing that? Don't tell me you're doing that still. You're not 5 anymore. What are you doing here, Serba? She motioned the way she was dressed. What does it look like? You? You joined? Jekyll closed his mouth. Harry's guard, Serba said. Yes. Why? What do you care? I don't remember you caring what we were up to when you walked out on the rest of us. You have any idea how hard Dad's been looking for you? They looked at Jekyll. They weren't related? They had nothing. There was nothing about her that said straight. Her emotion tips over. And after thinking about it, he sat next to her. Oh, I know, Jekyll replied, his tone dark. Do you have any idea how many of his thugs I had to put down to make sure they couldn't report where I was? And then you went and came here? Pretty much guaranteed. And then you went and came here. Pretty much guaranteed we'd never know where you were. And yet, here you are. She smiled. Here we are indeed. She gave a quick whistle, and the black dog on her left stood. Don't, Jekyll growled. Come on, Jackie, just hug him. You have no idea how he missed you. She gave a series of whistles, and the dog stepped toward the table. Jekyll turned to stone. Tibs stared at the fighter, then stood and joined him. If he felt the need to armor himself, this was getting serious. The entire inn was quiet, watching them. He extended his sense, looking for what her essence might be like, and was distracted by the bright essence that approached. Who are your friends? She asked, looking at over the table, amused. My team, Jekyll replied. I'm a dungeon runner. He's our leader, Karina said, standing by Tibs. On Jekyll's other side, Mez and Cumdar took position. Whatever your problem is with him is, you're going to be dealing with all of us. The woman looked at Karina, then burst out in laughter. Leader? Really, Jackie? You run away from it all the way here and you end up as their leader? She bent over laughing. It's Jekyll! He snapped. Tibs waited for the hidden guard to act, but he remained behind the woman, unmoving. She shook her head, straightening, still chuckling. Nah. She shook her head and straightened, still chuckling. I can't wait to see Dad's reaction when I tell him. He'd given all hope you'd ever take up the mantle. Even this might be too much for him to take. Don't you dare tell him, Jekyll threatened. She smirked. For what? When have you ever been able to threaten me? I don't care what that new trick lets you do. One whistle and my babies will be all over you. Remember that no matter what Dad wants of you, no one orders me about. If I want to tell Dad, I'm going to. Is that so? Harry growled in her ear, suddenly visible as more than just his essence. Everyone close enough to see him appear jumped in surprise. It seemed to me that you agreed to take my orders when you asked to be part of my guard. Was that a lie? She swallowed. No, Uncle. Not how you address me, Harry growled. No, sir. Uncle? Tibs fought the urge to look at Jekyll. He was related to her. Harry was her uncle. Why did Jekyll and Harry hate each other so much then? Good, Harry straightened. Why are you here instead of at your post? Thump left this position while I was taking a report from one of the merchants. Harry looked at the dog. At the dogs. That's Thump, isn't it? Yes, sir. And? He asked almost too casually. The question confused her. Then she ducked around the guard leader and gave a series of whistles as she vanished, causing the dogs to run after her. Harry didn't turn to watch her. Jekyll stared at the guard. She's part of the guard? She requested it, and with her dogs, she's going to be useful chasing down troublemakers. How could you agree to that? Harry narrowed his eyes. You seem to be under the misconception, Jackie boy, that I care about whatever problem you have with your family. My problem, Knuckles? No one in my family does anything without Dad telling them to. That includes my no one tells me what to do sister. She's not here because your father ordered her. You can't believe anything she says. Watch your tone, boy. I will break that stone body of yours if need be. No one lies to me. Fine, Jekyll said through clenched teeth. Then consider what my dad's going to do when he finds out I'm here. You know him. You know he's not going to be able to stay away. If my brother shows up in this town, Harry says, not sounding concerned, I will deal with him. You, Jackie boy, are going to focus on making my life simple. Is that clear? You will stop talking with my guards. You will stop acting like they are under your command just because they used to know you. You ran from your family. Act like it. The two glared at each other. Well, Harry demanded. Fine, Jekyll replied. I swear, Harry grumbled as he turned and walked away. If I'd known the boy was here when they asked me to take over, I'd have refused. This is going to be nothing but... The distance and your restarting conversation made the rest inaudible. Think you owe us an explanation, Trina said, sitting down. Jekyll looked around, his skin returning to normal. He motioned to the table, then let himself drop in a chair. Harry Hardknuckle is your uncle? As asked, sounding dismayed. Jekyll dropped his hand on the table. Please don't remind me. That looked intense, Joseph said, putting 10 cards on the table. Crow, please kill me. I kill you with love any time you let me, the server replied. I don't think that's what you need right now. Jekyll looked up. What I need right now is to crawl into your bed and forget about everything. Joseph caressed the fighter's cheek. What you need is to talk with your team. I can't wait to find out what this is all about. He left, and Jekyll watched him until he vanished into the kitchen. I still don't deserve him, he whispered, then down half a tankard. Where were we? I was hoping you could explain why the leader of the guard is so hard on you if he's your uncle. You know him well enough to answer that yourself, he replied. The stick of the rules is shoved up his ass so deep he can't bend down to pick up a copper off the floor. I know you don't like guards, Rena said, but that sounds excessive. You don't get it, Jekyll growled. Knuckles isn't in the guild by choice. My family put him in. Tibs looked at the others and was relieved to see the confusion reflected on them. I think you need to start earlier. Jekyll sighed and finished the tankard. Okay, me and Tibs are straight. Tibs raised an eyebrow. I am, I swear, just not to your level. The rest of you know how a street is set up, and it doesn't mean one street. They shook their head. Okay, at the bottom you have the beggars and the urchins, then the thugs, the thief cutlers. Then you get the con man, the confidence artist. After that, the organizations control the lower people. Independents like Tibs don't usually last long because they have no one watching their back. Each group fights the other for territory or just because they don't like each other. The nobles let it happen because it means they can't get large enough to be trouble. Took another tankard and sipped it. Back in my home, things happen differently. It's far back enough no one remembers when, but the largest gangs stopped fighting and formed alliances. The smaller gangs either swore allegiance to one of them or were destroyed. As time passed, the gangs became one, then a family. He paused, took another sip, and sighed. My family. Your family controls the entirety of the criminal element in your city? Gondor asked, sounding awed. Yeah, Jekyll replied, disgusted. I can see why you ran away, Rena said. Jekyll chuckled. Oh, that's not why I ran. I'm as criminal as anyone in my family. I'm a thug. I've broken limbs and heads. He grinned. I love doing it. I'm not sure I get why you ran then. Jekyll sighed. Jekyll sighed again. My father is the guildmaster. Big hat, top of the ladder, whatever you can think of. He is it. Nothing happens in that city without him approving it. He's not exactly young anymore. So when I was born, in his eternal wisdom, and because even back then he hated me, he decided I'd take over after him. Take over a criminal organization the size of a city? Karina asked, sounding unconvinced. Jekyll nodded. How did you think you'd do that? You barely know your letters or numbers. At that size, I expect it's more like a large company, where there's a lot of writing and counting involved. You have no idea, Jekyll grumbled. I wasn't done learning the individual letter that my tutor had tomes. this thick she wanted me to read. One look at them, and I knew that what terror was. I was on the other side of the city before dinner was ready. I'd have gotten out of the city too, but one of the guards knew my father, so he knew me. He brought me home and was well rewarded. How were you in a cell for the guild to get you if the guards worked for your father? He was asked. Few things. By then I'd disappeared within the fighting pits. I doubt Serb was right, and my dad ever thought I'd die, but it had been a few years since I had to break one of his thugs to stay hidden. The fight where I killed the guy that I was the fight where I killed the guy I was caught for was a hard one. He was dead, but I was messed up. My face was cut, bleeding, bruised. I doubt even dear old Dad would have recognized me then, let alone a guard. On top of that, the cells were packed. A lot of people were dead by the time we were taken out. I might not have lasted the night without the dungeon needing to be fed. They took us to the platform, forced a foul-tasting potion down my throat, and then I was here, in charge of you lot. The grin didn't last, and my sister knows about it. She looked too old to be your sister. Mez said, I'm the youngest. Jekyll said, I have a lot of siblings. She's among the oldest. He paused and was quieter as he continued. My mom died when I was 7. She'd been 6 since my birth. That lays bare your secret, Kumdar said. What is Harry Hard Knuckles? Just because I don't like talking about it doesn't mean it was a secret, Jekyll said. He sighed. I don't have all the information. It took place years before I was born. My dad was only a kid himself. Knuckles was the oldest of his sibling. He's older than he looks. It's the graduating, Tibs said. It lets adventurers live longer. Kieran and Kumdar nodded, as shrugged. My grandfather got the brilliant idea to expand, but not just to another city or another part of the city. No, he wanted to take over another guild. Jekyll motioned around them. The Adventurers Guild. You can't do that, Kieran said. It's too large. He knew that. His plan was to take all the people with even an inkling of an element that was loyal to him, send them to the guild for training, and when they were in comfortable position within the structure, have them take control. There you go. Guild controlled. Only it didn't happen, Kieran said, clearly. Jekyll nodded. Harry? Mez asked. He decided he liked the guild more than my family. Could be the element he picked. Light is about truth, and there isn't a lot of that in my family. He personally handed over every traitor, including himself, demanded to be punished for considering betraying them. Spent a couple of years in prison, then became what you saw, a pain in the ass and stickler for the rules. The colors you wear, Tibs said, it's not just because you like black and green, is it? He wasn't sure why he hadn't made the connection before. But on his street, gangs use colors to identify themselves. They're my family's color, Jekyll said. The whole organization, really. Wait, I said. So the people Harry brought to guard the city work for you? No, Jekyll stated and glanced at Tibs. But a few of them remember me, and because of my father, I've managed to get them to help me here and there. But why would Harry bring people to work for criminals? But why would Harry bring people who work for criminals to guard the city? Kieran asked. Jekyll chuckled. Here's the thing about us thugs. So long as you can keep us under control, we are very good enforcers. And what's a guard but an enforcer who works for you? The guild has the coin, and by using people he has a connection to, Harry can make better use of his already stellar temperament at controlling them. My dad probably doesn't even know. There are too many people in the organization for him to know everyone, and we're not exactly known for letting people know when we have to suddenly leave. He paused, but pensive as he drank. Except for my sister being here, I don't care what Knuckles said. She wouldn't have any reason to leave. She asked to work for him, so word's gotten around, which means my dad could have heard. Then the question is, Kundar said, if she is here on purpose, is it to watch over you, over him, or you? My dad sent her is for Knuckles, but he said she can't lie to him. I can't believe it's an accident. She asked to work for him while I live here. She hates my guts. She's had her dog torment me my entire life. Cursed quietly, but it won't matter. The moment she goes home, my dad will know, and that's when the peace here ends. The man took a tankard and raised it. Then I'll drink to the longest peace I've ever known. They all joined in. Jackal looked uncertain. Cumdar looked too pleased for Tibs to be comfortable. And this concludes chapter 62 of Bottom Rung. If you are enjoying this, please subscribe and hit the bell. Hit the thumbs up. Share with your friends. If you want to read this story or book too, it is on Royal Road. The link is in the notes, as well as the link to my Patreon should you want to support me. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.